Scholarship Foundation of St. Louis. Before we get started into the workshop, I do want to do a quick intro to the organization, just in case you're unfamiliar. So the Scholarship Foundation of St. Louis has been around for over 100 years, and we believe that an educated society is essential to a healthy democracy. And we do three main things at the Scholarship Foundation. So the first is awarding, the second is advising, and the last is advocacy. So that's a little bit about us. And I thank you so much for joining us tonight for one of the workshops of our summer transition series. We're going to be talking about creating your graduation plan. You all should have gotten a notification that this session will be recorded, so you can refer back to that. And I invite you to ask any questions that you might have throughout our time together. So you are welcome to unmute yourself, maybe towards the end, but also feel free to throw in questions into the chat whenever you'd like. Or you can ask questions throughout out loud if you feel so inclined to do so. So what we plan to talk about today is why creating a graduation plan is beneficial. We'll walk through the steps of understanding your graduation requirements, identifying your graduation goals, and then offer additional tips and recommendation for creating a graduation plan that works for you. This was intended for any student, regardless on where they are in their college going journey. So hopefully you can find this information applicable to your journey. So first, why is planning important? Why are we talking about this? So planning out our graduation plan is important because it can provide you with clarity. It can help you save money by completing graduation requirements in the least amount of semesters possible for you. It can also provide you with key information about financial aid, and it can help you identify potential challenges or setbacks along the way. And when it comes to creating your graduation plans, one of the key components is making sure we have a clear understanding of what our graduation requirements are. So this could look like understanding how many credits you need to meet your graduation requirements. Most undergraduate programs will require you to earn at least 120 credits, and then 60 credits for associate degree programs. But that does vary depending on your major. So for instance, bachelor degrees in engineering or maybe nursing, maybe one of those majors that require you to earn more than 120 credit hours for a bachelor's degree. We also want to make sure that we understand what the overall GPA requirement is. Typically, that can be at least a 2.0 GPA, but again, it could vary from one major to the other. So we want to make sure that we understand what that cumulative GPA requirement is for our major. And then some majors may require you to have internship or field experience. So this is something that we can be aware of so that we can decide at what point of my college going journey would be best for me to search for that internship, or when would be the best time to start looking for internships. And maybe we can chat with our peers, our department chairs, to get a clear understanding of that process and execute what would be best for you. And also meeting that graduation requirement, of course. And then another thing that I wanted to tie along with the graduation requirements is SAP requirements. And so SAP stands for Satisfactory Academic Progress. And this is a federal regulation that requires colleges to monitor academic progress of all federally financial aid recipients. So any student that is receiving federal financial aid, so that could be the federal Pell Grant, federal student loans, each student will be monitored at the end of each semester. And so the student or the school will look at that student's grades to make sure that they're meeting all the satisfactory academic progress requirements. And so I'm not going to go too far in the weeds with what those requirements are, but I am going to touch on them briefly. And so the first one is GPA requirements, and that is just a 2.0 GPA. That's pretty standard across the board, but it could be different for your school might have like a different requirement or higher GPA requirement, or your major could. Also, another component is semester hour completion rate. So with this one, students must complete at least 67% of the credits they attempt. So with this one, we want to be sure that we understand what is counted as a attempted credit. So this could be a class that is dropped after a particular date, could be counted in that 67% calculation. And then the other SAP requirement is maximum time frame. So students must complete their degree program within 150% of the semester hours required for that degree. So in general, undergraduate students must complete a bachelor's degree within 180 attempted hours. So I don't expect you all to remember that by any means, but I do want you to be aware of this requirement. Many students that I chat with aren't aware of this until they're not meeting one of those standards, which does jeopardize their federal financial aid, as I mentioned. But each school has to abide by this federal regulation. And I encourage students to do your own research to determine if the school has any other additional requirements that are in addition to the SAP requirements. Nice way, or I would say an easy way to do your research about this is you can Google the school's name plus satisfactory academic progress, and that'll usually take you directly to where the school has information about their requirements in their SAP requirements on their website. And that's a step that I will do with students when we're talking about SAP requirements, and sending them a resource that's directly from the school that they're attending. So moving right along to setting realistic goals. So here you see some suggestions for setting your goals. First is defining your academic goals. So we could be looking at what your desired graduation date is. You can determine what your desired GPA is and make sure that it's in accordance, of course, with the GPA requirements for graduation. We can do a self-assessment. So this could look like identifying your strengths in areas that you want to improve, as well as assessing your, making an assessment of yourself. And so you can identify what resources you can use either on or off campus. This could include going to a tutor, visiting your student success center on campus, going to therapy, or getting testing or note-taking accommodations if you're eligible for that. You can also evaluate your current standings. So if you're a current college student, you can review your GPA. You can review the credits that you've already earned and what credits you have remaining, or any other requirements for you to meet your graduation requirements. And then in line with that, we can be looking at personal circumstances like work commitments, family obligations, other personal factors to account for, which will all factor into the course load capacity that you might have for that semester or school year. And then we can look at creating a course plan. So your academic advisor could be a good resource when mapping out your course plan. You want to look at what courses you will take each semester, and then also verify that that course is offered at the time that you plan to take it, as well as making sure that you have a plan to meet any prerequisites. So any courses you're required to take before you can take another course. You can then look at the amount of credits that's manageable based on the course difficulty or personal obligations, excuse me. And then also where you can fit in courses that spark your interest, but aren't necessarily related or required for graduation. I really love hearing when I hear of them taking a course that, again, isn't required for graduation. It's something that sparked their interest. And that's a great way to utilize your college experience if you have the space for it. And then another thing I thought it to include to think about when we are talking about our course plan is if you're interested in studying abroad, when's the best time to do that? That is something that many students do consider, and some students end up taking up that opportunity while they're in college. So we can be thinking about that in our course plan. And then developing a study and time management plan. We can allocate specific time slots for studying, attending classes, completing your assignments. Also, when you're going to take some time for you, most importantly. I know it can be really easy to just focus on academics solely, but you do have to think about yourself holistically in this process And when can you take time for you? And then also we can utilize tools such as planners, calendars, and apps to organize your time effectively. You can take advantage of the tutoring center, study groups, and your professor's office hours. So tutoring center, office hours, those are all things that you are paying for. And so if you could benefit from them, I encourage you to use them. Next up is regular progress reviews. So you can review your progress on maybe monthly or quarterly basis, as well as at the end of each semester to ensure that you're on track and adjust your plan as needed. You can meet with your academic advisor, which can be helpful in the progress review process as well. So utilize those academic advisors if you find them to be helpful in all the processes for you and deciding what courses you're going to take, when you're going to take them, if you're on track to meeting those requirements and things like that. Next up is address your challenges proactively. So we can start off by recognizing potential challenges such as difficult courses that you have on the horizon, any personal issues that you can anticipate, or maybe time constraints. Having those things in mind maybe can help us decide how we want to tackle those or what resources we may need to tap to support us in facing that challenge. We can also have backup plans in case you need to drop a class or take a class or adjust your timeline. And then you can also reach out for help when needed, whether for advisors or through your advisors, counselors, or even your peers can be a good resource to reach out for help. And then the next piece is maintaining motivation and focus. Admittedly, this can be a challenging thing, especially when you are on a journey that takes maybe years to reach your goal. And so some suggestions for maintaining that motivation and focus is breaking down your long-term goals into smaller, achievable milestones, maybe rewarding yourselves for meeting your targets and making progress. And then also reminding yourself just why you're doing this in the first place. Why are you pursuing your degree? Why are these goals? Why did you set these goals? And then last but not least, creating a financial plan. So this could be creating your budget. How can I manage tuition? What other expenses do I have, such as textbook and living expenses? Maybe understanding what type of aid you're eligible to receive and the terms of those aids. So this could be like identifying which scholarships or grants are renewable and that you can count on for multiple years. You can also plan to apply for additional financial aid if need be. And then also, if necessary, consider a part-time job that won't interfere significantly with your study. Many students that are eligible for federal work study are able to find jobs on campus maybe that are flexible with their academic schedule, or there may be other local businesses in the area that have experience hiring current college students that have the ability to be flexible with students' school schedule. So now let's move on to talk about parallel plans. And I mentioned in the suggestions for planning backup plans. Another way we like to think about backup plans is parallel plan. So as you map out your graduation plan, you want to be mindful of alternative options that's going to keep you on track to meeting your goals, but going along a alternative route than the original plan. So this can allow you to be proactive and adapt to unforeseen challenges without significant delays. Also, you can think about your parallel plan, as you think about your parallel plan, you want to have in mind that end goal still. And so as we map out our semesterly course schedule, you can try to provide some wiggle room in case you need to maybe drop a course and leave room to take that course down the road. You also want to balance course difficulty. So some students may decide to enroll in a different course over the summer, they may decide to enroll in a difficult course over the summer. That could either be at their current school or at a different school that's more affordable, or maybe a school that's back at home if you're a student that's studying out of state or further away from home. If possible, you can reflect on other majors or minors that you can change to that'll work for most or all of your credits that you've already learned. You may start off as a computer science major, but maybe for whatever reason you change that to information technology, or a nursing major that switches to health administration. And so again, your academic advisor can be a great resource for outlining your parallel plan, just as well as a good resource for outlining your initial plan. And also, just like your initial plan, financial planning is going to be key to incorporate into our parallel plan as well. So for example, let's say that you initially plan to graduate in 4 years, but you end up needing to enroll for a 5th year, which is becoming more common. You'll want to identify what funding you'll be eligible to receive for that additional year. Right. So we're doing pretty good on time. Now I have a couple of scenarios that I wanted to share with you all. And with these scenarios, you can kind of think about maybe your personal circumstances or something you've heard from someone in your life about their own experience, or maybe something that I've already spoke about today in thinking about these scenarios. So the first scenario is for Trey. So Trey is in his 2nd year and recently mapped out a graduation plan with his advisor, aiming to graduate in 2 more years. Following his meeting, Trey had a conversation with his friend that sparked Trey's interest to study abroad next year. Now excited about studying abroad, what should Trey consider before deciding if he will study abroad or not? So I do invite you to share. If you want to unmute yourself and share. If you want, you can reflect silently. That's completely fine. I can jump in and kind of share some thoughts on things that Trey can be thinking about, though, if no one wants to chime in, which is completely fine. So what Trey can be thinking about in this scenario, I think, would be what impact will study abroad have on his graduation plan? So this could look like, which graduation requirements can Trey meet while studying abroad? It's likely that only a few courses will be offered in the study abroad program. So which of those courses can he meet? How many credits can he possibly earn? And which of them will be applicable to his graduation requirements? Will different or the same classes be offered in the fall and the spring semester for the study abroad program? So maybe Trey can only earn 6 of the credits he needs for graduation, but maybe 12 can be earned in the spring. And then since Trey did have plans to graduate in 2 more years, will that timeline be the same if he still study abroad or does the study abroad program? So when will those remaining classes be offered that Trey must take before graduation? So when he returns, which classes can be offered? When are they being offered? And does that work with the plan? And then if Trey is receiving accommodations, will those be available when he studies abroad? So those are just some examples on what Trey or any student can be thinking about if they have a similar scenario as Trey. Another thing to keep in mind, or that Trey can have in mind, is what impact will this have on his out-of-pocket costs? Study abroad seemed to be a new part of the plan, or a new part of the plan that Trey is considering. So it wasn't initially part of his plan, his college graduation plan. And so now we can think of this as an alternative plan or an extension of his plan. And so Trey still wants to be thinking about that out-of-pocket expense. Will it impact his cost of attendance? What about his direct expense? Because he does have to purchase a ticket to travel. Can all of his financial aid be used for studying abroad? And so we would think about that for all the aid that we're receiving, including any private funding that we're getting. So you all can reflect more on that scenario, or think about other scenarios that you as a student might be experiencing or might run into. Also, conversations with our loved ones that have gone to college, you can kind of pick their brain and see what scenarios they had or instances where they had to maybe do a parallel plan or make tough decisions, and how did they navigate that process. Next, we are moving on to the next scenario, and this is for Jackson. So Jackson just completed their first year in college and will need to retake a course because they did not earn the necessary grades to meet their major requirement. There's only one professor who offers that course, which makes Jackson nervous because the professor's teaching style does not work for Jackson's learning style. What will Jackson consider as they plan their next steps? So, again, I invite you to think about the scenario. Think about what you might do or what you think your loved ones did or what you've learned that people in your life have done in similar circumstances. So I'm going to share some ideas. So Jackson can be thinking about, can the course be taken at a different college maybe? Maybe they can verify if there is, if the course is offered at a different college, is it transferable? Can it transfer back to Jackson's original college? And with that, making sure that they have a clear understanding of the cost component. Will any of my aid be applicable? And if I do use this aid to maybe take another course over the summer, for instance, what does that mean for my future semesters? And also, when and how is that course offered? Is it only offered virtual? And if so, is that conducive to my learning style? Or can I take that class in person? And is it offered in the summer, where maybe I'm just taking one course and have a lot of time to put towards that particular course? Or is it only offered in the fall or spring? Another thing Jackson can ask themselves is, if they retake the course at their current school, what are some resources that they can utilize that they didn't use at first? So could include their professor's office hours. Jackson noted that in the scenario, the teacher's teaching style was not supportive to the student's learning style. That happens, but maybe a one-on-one interaction would be more supportive of how the student learns and absorbs information. Also, are there study groups with their peers, or maybe a study group that's facilitated by a teacher's assistant that has a different teaching style? Is that available? Or also, what tutors are available either on or off campus to support Jackson if they do end up retaking that course at the same school with the same professor? And then this other piece has a bit of additional planning, more complex planning along with it, but are there other majors that Jackson could change their majors to that would keep them on track to graduation, but it wouldn't require them to retake that course? So I just wanted to throw out all the options, and that is an option for Jackson. There may be other planning that needs to go in place, other things that Jackson needs to consider if they choose this route, but it is an option. So those are our two scenarios. And so we are nearing the end, but before we wrap up, I do want to make sure that you all are aware that we do have one more session of our summer transition workshop series. It is Thursday on June 27th, where the topic of locating and accessing campus resources will be the topic of discussion. I also wanted to take the time to introduce you to our group of lovely student advisors. The session that is on Thursday will be facilitated by our advisor, Liliana. So hopefully you can join her for the discussion on locating and accessing campus resources. And so now we have reached the end, and I want to open it up to see if there are questions.